will the vice chair run the meeting? Or?
Yeah, I
we'll
guess
have
so.
to. Katie, can you tell me if you can see that I'm recording?
You are recording.
Excellent.
But we do need people to mute because there's a lot of background for those who are not.
You just unmuted. You just muted yourself too. So, Vice Chair, you ready to run this meeting?
Yep, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I guess first up will be to approve the minutes from June 15th.
Oh, Jerry, let me do a roll call first.
Oh, sure.
Jerry?
I'm here.
Kate?
Here.
Micah? Micah's here. She's waving.
I'm muting issues. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jerry, go ahead. Sorry.
That's okay. First up to be approve the minutes from June 15th.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, changes?
Not from me.
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Jerry?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Micah?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we have any citizen comments at this time? No one?
Nope, no, I'm just gonna observe, be quiet and put my mute back on.
I'll move on to presentation of school FYI items. Anything on today's docket?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Old business tuition contract, probably don't have anything for that this evening, I'm assuming.
Nope.
No.
Instructional issues. You seem to be pretty boilerplate, no reason not to adopt these tonight, I guess. You know, full board's not here, but these are basically bookkeeping ones, so might as well put these in place. I guess I'd entertain a motion to adopt on second reading policies 1 through 4 on the agenda. Want to second that, Kate?
I can second that. Yep,
Or
sorry.
make that motion, rather, I guess.
So moved.
Second.
First one, the JLF reporting child abuse or neglect. All those in favor? I'm gonna run the roll call, Pam. You're muted, Pam.
Okay. So I've got Jen on the phone right now, so she's going to join this way. It didn't show up, Jen.
Oh, because Emily's called in too. Benson. We dialed the number on the meeting message because we were both in it. So I don't know if there's a button or something you need to.
No, I don't see a button. Katie's looking too. She doesn't see it. So we're in the middle of voting on second reading and adoption of policies.
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to move forward with that.
Yep.
So we're
Just so you know, I was here at 10 of.
Okay, thank you. They can hear you. I've got the phone next to the laptop. So we're
Okay.
on the instructional issues, second reading and adoption of policies 1 JLF. Is that correct, Jerry?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yes.
and it
Reporting
was
child abuse and neglect. Yep.
okay, and it was there was a motion. Kate made the motion. Micah seconded. Correct?
The other way around, but
The other way
Close
around, yeah.
Okay. And Jerry,
yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Micah,
Yes.
And Jen.
Jen.
And Jen.
Yes.
Okay.
Jen, do you have the agenda in front of you? Do you want to continue with the meeting?
Sure. Yep, I have
Okay.
the agenda in front of me.
Okay.
Cool.
Finish off the instructional thing, that's fine. You dived in there, you're good.
We'll move on to number 2 then, the JLI EB safety program. All those in favor?
Jerry,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Micah,
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
Move on to number 3, the JBCB staff conduct. All those in favor?
Jerry,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Micah,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
And then number 4, the JBCC staff responsibilities. All those in favor?
Jerry,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Micah,
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
And Jen, I'll let you take over from number 7 down.
Okay, if you can hear me okay.
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. All right, so consider personnel actions, approve 7A, approval of summer work projects.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Okay, all those in
Okay,
favor?
Jerry,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Micah,
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, 7B, election of summer program personnel.
So moved.
Detail on that one if you want to read it. But motion?
Second?
Kate, you second?
Yep, Jerry, and then me.
Any question?
No?
All right, approve.
Jerry,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Micah,
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, 7C, accept resignation of Louise Sandberg. I don't have any backup, but
I've got the backup right here. She, the recommendation is you accept, the Jackson School Board accept with regret the resignation of Louise Sandberg effective June 30th, 2020. And we have her correspondence attached.
okay. I'll look at it later. Motion?
So I motion to accept with regret the resignation of Louise Sandberg.
Second?
Kate seconded it, Jen.
Yep, so all those in favor?
Jerry,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Micah,
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, business affairs? Anybody have anything? Seeing none, we'll move on to administrator report, superintendent reentry committee.
Yep, I'll give you a brief update on the reentry committee and look to Katie to jump in and fill in any holes that I leave. So the reentry committee is made up of about 50 people from the community, from administrators, teachers. We have a couple of physicians on it.
Is it a call, Daddy? Or is it a video?
It's a conference call.
We've been meeting since the beginning of June and taking a look at several different areas, including scheduling, facilities, personnel. I'm losing two.
Transportation and
Transportation,
co-curricular.
sorry, and co-curricular. Thank you.
School. They're
We
talking about right now.
This week, we've started our listening sessions, and Jackson was our first listening session this morning, open to parents and community members. At that presentation, community members will have the chance to see a PowerPoint that shows the key points of our draft reentry plan. This reentry plan will be going to the full committee on Wednesday for review. They'll be sending feedback to us, and then the steering committee will meet next Wednesday. The first week of August, the steering committee will be presenting their recommendations to the SAU9 school board. That first week, it's the week of August 3rd. And then following that, we will have a reentry plan to address the start of the school year. There are three different portions, feasible ways for us to have students back learning. One is full face-to-face with flexibility, allowing for physical distancing. wearing face masks and practicing hygiene, sanitizing and personal hygiene and sanitizing and disinfecting. The other is a hybrid model. And the third is if we needed to be in full remote again. Our hope and our goal is to have students back face-to-face with our teachers.
Okay. And it is important that, I don't know who else is on the phone, but we have, there was a survey that was sent out, and then the listening post that if people have feedback to give to the list to, the whole point is that the community can chime in and learn as well as give feedback into that.
Definitely. Thank you, Jen. Yes, that's a really good point. You don't have to just attend the Jackson listening session. There will be one more. You can attend any of the listening sessions that are identified on the SAU9 website.
Okay. And that is the point of the listening post, is that the community, that's where their feedback goes.
Exactly. Thank you.
So that it can all get into, okay. Because we've had community members coming forward, with concerns and questions, and we're trying to, as a board, my point is for all of the board members is to help people understand the process that's going on, and that they should go to the listening posts and they should engage in the surveys so that all the information is gathered in the process that we need it to go, so that we can take it all into consideration when doing the reentry program.
And then
Absolutely.
if I could also add that each school, after the SAU9 board has approved or disproved whatever they're going to do with the plan, each school will take a look at it, and there are certain parameters that are givens, masks and transportation rules and so forth, but each school's way of implementing it might be slightly different. We're very small, and so our class sizes are smaller. Our staff is also smaller, so it may look a little different in practice than it might in a larger school.
I think one thing that's important is that regardless of which model it is, if we do go back full face-to-face, it's not going to look like it looked full face-to-face last September.
That's true.
So it's, it's everybody in the building, but it's going to be done in a way to minimize risk as much as we can.
I saw that Jess had asked about, whether the Jackson School Board was going along with it or not. I think that first off, I'd just say that the reentry plan I thought looked great. I mean, it looked like a lot of work really went into that, and it was just encouraging to see that there's a well thought out plan for the SAU to deal with this. In that though, it did say that in our August meeting, the school board would either be endorsing that or not. But I think everything about it so far really makes sense. I would ask, so I'm not looking for a solution obviously tonight, but what has the discussion about enforcement of mask wearing looked like? Because that can obviously pose lots of problems with students complying with that. But bus drivers, hall monitors, classroom teachers, has there been discussions about what expectations are going to be for that?
There have been discussions about it, Jerry. Really, the mask wearing is an educational component that we're encouraging parents to join us in, that we will be mandating mask wearing. We know that some students will have different physical responses to that. We accept that. We know that one of the best way to minimize the risk of exposure and spreading the virus is through wearing masks. So we will do everything we can to encourage all students to wear masks. All staff will be required to wear masks as well.
I think Jerry, to answer your question, I think it's also
Jen is going to
until it's released. You know what I mean, with the details. So.
Okay.
What I really appreciate is that there's the stance of Jen wanting to wait and hear, because this is a complete moving target, and time is something that is really changing everything all the time, every day. What I also in exchange really like to hear is that Gail is saying that each school will have, each district will have the opportunity to have a conversation, because I attended this morning's first listening post. I heard a lot of kind of general questions from our community What I did not hear until I hung up that call, when I got a lot of outreach from our Jackson School community. I spoke to a lot of people today. A lot of people reached out to me, which I really appreciate, and appreciate getting to be a person who brings this to the board's attention, is that there's a lot of hesitation from a lot of our parents. And I totally respect that this is something that is a process. But as a Jackson School board, I want to be prepared after August 6th to have conversations about the parents and about the families who are just simply not comfortable sending their children to school. And I appreciate that this is a conversation about equity. It's a conversation about all students needing to have their needs met, which we are a public school, and I really respect that process. I also just want to be really aware as a board that we will absolutely need to have a conversation about all of the parents and who are looking right now after that listening post and some of the things that they heard. I know that there are a lot of parents who feel like their only opportunity is going to be to unenroll their children. And so I want to make sure that we're at a place where we're ready to have a conversation about those families and about how we want to face that. I don't think, because right now, as I understand it, like 30% of our Jackson School grammar school community students are on the fence, and this could change. We have time. You know, the conversation could progress. We might not even be having a conversation about going back to school in 6 weeks. But I do want to just be aware as a board and what that means for families whose students have IEPs, what that means for the overall population when families are feeling like they have to unenroll their students and then re-enroll them potentially when remote learning does occur, if it occurs, and what kind of disruption we might face as a small school community when that does occur. And because we are a really tiny population, and we do have an opportunity to have a conversation as a community, I really, really hope that we take that opportunity once all of these very well thought out recommendations come forward, because I know people are working very, very hard with lots of different resources in order to have this conversation, and that should be honored.
Which, I mean, I think, I mean, I agree with you, Kate, on most of that, but I mean, Pam or Katie, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I mean, if parents are considering not enrolling their students in school, whatever the school form looks like, they would have to be considering homeschooling at this point, and trying to determine what process they need to go for that, and might want to start contacting administrators to deal with that.
Jen, do you want me to answer that, or do you want me to wait until citizen comments?
No, I mean, we're on the topic. We can discuss it, and you know,
Okay.
part of my thought process is that we wait, you know, and we streamline parents to give their feedback and stay part of the process. And once the plan has been released, because the globe will be moving along, you know, world news and where we are with the pandemic will be moving along as well every day, as well as the reentry plan will be more finalized. And then once that is established, you know, in another 2 weeks per se, then we could have another meeting with our community once we know what we have and saying how our plan might go forward. And again, like, everything's changing by the hour.
Yep.
You know, so we're just taking a stab in the dark at this point with all the information that we have best to our ability. And I know the committee's working tirelessly about this, so I can't imagine the conversations. So, I mean, that's just where I am. I'd like to sit back and make sure people are expressing themselves, be prepared, as Kate is saying, you know, to discuss what we're going to do with Jackson. And what Jerry's saying is that if those people feel that strongly, you know, we are leaning towards going back to school at this point in time with the conditions that we have, that those people who feel that way, they may want to look into alternative education sources as well. So all of that on the table. But Pam, go ahead.
I was just going to say that there, a lot of our language we're using is getting confusing. So really being very clear about the difference between homeschooling, remote instruction, and remote learning. So really on a case-by-case basis, as we have conversations with families, we will continue to provide special services as long as children are enrolled in our public school system. And we have very specific responsibilities that are framed by the federal and state government. So that's a whole, you all know on the board know that I could go for hours talking about that.
Right.
I won't, but I'll leave that with you, that there are many different terms that are being thrown around. So I think that your goal to let us continue the work on the reentry committee, come up with a draft plan to bring it to school boards for approval, and then to have individual conversations with families as needed, and for the Jackson community to have follow-up conversations once we have a plan that is no longer draft.
Thanks, Pam, for the clarification there. If the parents homeschool their children, are they still technically enrolled in the district?
No, they're not.
No.
Okay. And as far as the reentry plan is concerned, I mean, you know, as I read it, I see that there's 3 different options for returning to school. And, you know, that is the reentry plan, correct? I mean, it's, you're not, the reentry committee isn't looking to change the reentry plan that much at this point, is it?
Not significantly. Ours, well, go ahead, Katie. She's been working on the scheduling portion.
That is the draft plan. We're looking, the reason for the listening posts or listening sessions is to get information and make sure we're able to answer additional questions that community members have that we maybe missed in this. The steering committee will recommend one of those models as the way we start the school year. So we don't know which one of those 3 models will be the recommendation that will be made to the SAU 9 board.
And I guess as a Jackson School Board, we're going to be looking at agreeing to the reentry plan, which has 3 options for reentry into school. And I guess if we're talking about some other option as a board, we would have to talk about that other option as a board. But the reentry plan as it exists now has 3 different available options for returning to school. And it probably won't know in early August what the final plan is going to be for kids going back to school is going to look like. But the reentry plan spells out all those steps, and you know, that's not changing a whole lot at this point. Then,
and it is flexible. If conditions should change in the valley, we can go either way. You know, if we start hybrid, we can go full face, or we can go all the way back to remote. It's going to depend on, and we have doctors that are and nurses that are on the committee with us and are making recommendation. And I think one of the doctors said, if we were to come back to school tomorrow, I feel 100% sure I can get a test done in 24 hours. We have a low incidence in the valley. And with the masking and the social distancing, he felt very confident. However, in 2 weeks' time, that can all be changed. And we might be saying, no, we're not going to take the risk and we're going to go full remote. So it is a flexible plan. And that's why we were hesitant to put anything out right now as to exactly what we're going to do, because it could be any one of those 3 options and they could change as well. So.
And I think,
I mean, we can go back to school and 2 weeks later, back to remote. I mean, we have to be flexible.
Yep.
You know.
well, I think that for me, just to be clear, is that respecting the process of the committee, but giving the board a heads up that after the first listening post, there was a lot of concern based on if we return to school, it is solely a return to school for every child. And there would not be, like the concern was parents were hearing, there will not be an option to remote learn if the SAU is back in full face learning, even if it looks different.
and I guess that's why I'm trying to clarify our role, Kate, is that, you know, the reentry plan had 3 different models for returning to school. You know, to me, remote learning is reentry into school. That's returning to school. If it's entirely remote learning, that's still kids returning to school.
But will families be entitled to remote learn?
Okay, if you let me finish.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Here. So if, for instance, like let's say hypothetically we were agreeing to this reentry plan tonight, that doesn't mean that it's been decided that kids are going to return to the physical school building in September. That hasn't been decided yet. But let's say that the SAU 9 district, let's say that Kevin decides that kids are going to be returning to the school building to have school. That's not a decision the Jackson School Board can make. That's only a decision I believe that Kevin can make. And am I correct about that, at least?
Actually, it will be the board, I believe, Jerry. So the SAU 9 board will adopt one of those plans as our anticipated start. Again, like Jen said, like Gail said, it could change, you know, the next day. And then at that point, if the Jackson School Board didn't feel that that decision was going to meet the needs of the Jackson community, the Jackson School Board could meet and say, you know what, the SAU 9 board has said they're going to go back full face-to-face, but in Jackson, we're not comfortable with that, and we want it to be the hybrid model, or we want it to be the remote model for our Jackson Grammar School students.
The only place, Jerry, where it would be prescribed by somebody outside of the school board. So going back in is different than coming out. So to remote. So if there was a surge in the valley, and if public health officials, DHHS said, you're closing that school down, then that would come from outside. At this point, for the reentry committee will make their recommendations, and then school boards will make decisions about which recommendation they want to accept.
And I guess that was just my understanding after this morning, and that's what, as a board, I want us all to really understand, so that if there is a large population of the parents in Jackson who are voicing a lot of concern, that we're ready to have an alternative conversation if that seems appropriate at the time.
I think there's an additional question that maybe I'm queuing off of that I want to be clear about here, which is if there's face-to-face reopening, but there are individuals who don't want to do face-to-face reopening, can they opt for remote learning? Or is your only option when face-to-face happens that it's like that's the only way to go to school? And that's, I think, important for us to distinguish inside this conversation.
And I think that's kind of what I was going to bring up, is that faculty cannot really juggle both options. They can't be in their class teaching all day and do remote instruction. It takes an enormous amount of energy. So although we are required to educate anyone who has a 504 plan or a medical issue or something that's documented, so we're willing to, and talking about making accommodations for students who have a medical need or reason for that. But as far as saying to everybody, you can choose whether you want to do remote or face-to-face, we felt like we don't have the staff capacity to offer that at this time.
Thanks, that's clear. And yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jen, I think we're good.
The only I want to add, I would like some clarification on who gets to decide where the kids go, because particularly in Jackson here, you know, we don't have a middle school, nor do we have a high school. Yet we are required to educate our middle school kids and our high school kids. And if we opt not to go along with what the SAU 9, you know, is doing, we will have to find a place and a way to educate our middle school kids and our high school kids. Correct?
No, well, that's the reason, Jerry, that we're bringing this to the SAU 9 board in August, because we have so many different tuition agreements out there. So our hope is that we're going to bring something that each of you as board members and all of our board members will be able to say, yes, this makes sense at this point in time, knowing that things can change. And you really as a committee, we've had to take a look at what kind of structure we need in place for our elementary age students, our middle school students, our high school students. Everyone has different ability to be able to physical distance with supports and without supports, wear masks with supports, without supports. So I feel comfortable that you'll be more confident once we have put together something that we feel like we've listened to the community. These questions are really helpful for us to consider as we're finalizing our recommendations to the SAU 9 board.
Great.
I guess between now and August, so as a board member, I would just like some clarification on, you know, what our role in it is exactly, because it just seems to me like I like the reentry plan as it existed. I thought it basically meant that we were agreeing that we would have 3 options, and that there might be 3 options that, you know, August 25th it might look like all of a sudden, like, okay, now it's safe to return kids to school, or now it might be like, oh, it's not safe for kids to return to school, so we're going to do remote learning, and that wouldn't be an emergency decision by the school board at the last minute, that the school board would be saying up front in early August that, hey, we agree that we're going to trust that the SAU 9, that Kevin's going to make, the district's going to make, the SAU 9 district is going to make the right call when it comes to what education is going to be when kids return to school.
That's
given
the
that there's
intent,
3 options
Jerry.
for that.
That
That's
is
the
the
intent.
intent, Jerry. I'm sorry if we weren't clear. The intent is that ideally we're back face to face, looking a bit differently, like Katie was speaking about, that if we can't be back to face for everyone, that we'll have a hybrid model. If we get a surge or public health officials say this school needs to close, those 3 can stay open, then we would have the remote instruction. So really at any given point in time over the next several months, we could have different schools in the SAU 9 office in different instructional systems.
And I guess that's what makes sense to me, is that, as it looks now, it looks like returning to school is something that's possible and, reasonably safe and good to do, but with the possibility that might change at any given moment.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
And to me, that's what I'm comfortable as a school board member agreeing to. I don't want to be faced with August coming around and saying like, well, Jackson School Board can decide whether we're going to send our kids back or not. Like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And if that's going to be the role that we're doing, then Jackson School Board needs to come up with a plan on how to make that decision. It's not based on the reentry plan.
Jen, may I make one more comment?
Yep, go ahead.
So our physicians are working. CDC has just come out with a clinicians line that they can call. So some epidemiologists have come out to say X percentage within a community is the percentage that you look at that you say, yes, schools can be open, or no, they can't be open. So I do know that our physicians have asked that question on the CDC clinicians line to find out what they're recommending for a percentage, right, at the time that we're in school, to be able to make those decisions with guidance from our medical providers.
Great.
Okay.
I have confidence that the board is doing everything they can, the committee is doing everything that they can to make it safe for our students and our staff and our community. So I'd like to wait and see what we vote on, as we get closer, and then being able to support that.
And I agree with Jen 100% on that. That's kind of what my point is like, let's, if Jackson's going to have a plan outside of that, then, we need to start thinking about that now. But I'm good with Jackson not having a plan outside of that. I like the plan as it exists now. And also to reinforce what Gail said, that, what Jackson does in Jackson Grammar School might look a little bit different than what happens in Pine Tree. It might look a little bit different than Conley L, might look a little bit different than Barlow Elementary School. That's a different issue to me.
Right. Okay. All right. So I think we've all set our piece on this topic for now, because it's still a moving target at this point in my eyes, and we need to wait until the committee meets and gives out their recommendation. But again, I would encourage people, as board members, to reach out to the community to make sure they're doing everything they can to attend the listening posts and to get their feedback in and learn the process as what's going on, so that they're educated themselves and maybe feel a little bit more comfortable as well with whatever the process might be, or the reentry plan might be. So again, reach out to those parents, have them attend another listening post even, or any other listening post as well, so that they get their feedback in.
And Jen, I'd just like to thank everyone that's on that committee. They're doing a great job for the community.
Yeah, it's got to be a thankless job at this point. I can't imagine the hours and the time that's going into it. Gail, do you have anything?
No, not tonight.
Okay. Board member issues. I do have one question. I don't know if it could come in here. Someone has asked me, a couple of people have asked me, they have students who are trying to work, and they need somebody at the school to sign off, but I guess people aren't doing that right now. Is there a change in process, or who can I talk to about that?
Oh, for getting
Like
work papers? Is that Sharon at the office?
Go ahead, Katie. We have
So
work.
it's actually
papers
all on the
here.
website. It's all on the website, and
nobody's doing it, or nobody's signing off on work papers at the school right now, so these kids can't work.
they can come to the SAU office, and we are
Okay.
people in the office. We're not allowing people in, but we'll come out to sign things.
Should they make an
Okay,
appointment?
great.
There's
would-
typically someone there, but
They should call ahead just to make sure that
Yeah.
we know someone's here.
Right.
Definitely.
But that's what they could do. Okay, thank you. That was my citizen hat. Not that we have that yet.
Thank
But
you.
committee reports.
Jen,
Yes, Jerry.
you probably didn't see it, but Susan piped in saying that she's got work papers at the school people can get to at the Jackson Grammar School
For work papers.
for work papers.
Okay.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
might not be able to. I don't know if she can sign off on them or
That's
not, but she's got the
online.
papers anyway.
Okay, and then another one was in North Conway. So, but thank you. Okay. Any committee reports at this time? I don't think so. Board discussion, consider New Hampshire School Board Association membership dues 2021. You have to vote on that? You have to vote on that, right?
You should have someone make a motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
So moved.
thank you. Second, anybody? I'll
Second.
second it. Okay. All those in favor of paying the New Hampshire School Board Association membership dues for 2021?
Jerry,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Micah,
Yes.
Jen.
Yes. Okay, we have the next meeting date is August 17th. Is there any other meeting? Is there like another special meeting? Kevin was saying there might be one in earlier August.
Yep, there'll be a Conway, SAU 9 full board meeting, most likely August 6th, Thursday, August 6th.
Okay, great. 6 p.m.?
Yeah, time has not been set, although
Okay.
Katie's nodding her head that it has been.
it's not been set, but it typically is 6 p.m. I'd be surprised if it wasn't.
And that's full board, meaning just
And
the.
it's going to be just, we
That's
don't know-
everybody.
send out the details if it's remote or in person or whatever.
Right, and it's going to be the
Yes.
full SAU 9 board.
Right. Great. So that means all of us can go, guys. Okay, citizen comments? I already said mine. Anybody else?
No, I have no comment, except that there's been great work on that community effort with, keep reading it in the paper. You're right, it's a thankless job. They're working tirelessly to do the best for all the students and staff. And, obviously it's a difficult thing to be faced, but you will get through this, and, the kids will get back there eventually. So, continued good luck.
Yeah, no, thank you. Oh, I can't believe, thankless. And thank you, Micah and Katie, for signing the manifest. So I appreciate that. We need it. And we don't have a non-public session.
No non-public.
No non-public. Anybody have anything else before we adjourn?
Is this open for the public? Can I say something?
Citizens
Yes.
comment? Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I didn't know that. I don't have the Zoom thing. I don't know who's there. Sorry, go ahead.
Hi, Brian Callahan. I'd just like to say that I'm one of the concerned parents. Both me and my wife are concerned. We have a daughter with asthma, very serious asthma. We've been providing these feedback, but knowing the quantity of parents out there that have concerns, I don't understand necessarily where the information is going, because it seems like there's a lot of us concerned, and I don't think it's being addressed in any of these plans. I honestly do feel that there should be options, Jerry. I think as a community person, it's a scary thing knowing that your kids are going to go to school. And I think very highly of the Jackson School and all the staff and faculty, but I think it's going to be very hard to enforce all these mask rules. There is no state mandate. There's no state mandate about social distancing. All of these things as a parent are very, very concerning. So I just wanted to voice my opinion. I don't think all is well. And I honestly don't agree with what they've come up with. I think we should be remote going back. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your input. And I do hope you, and I believe you said that you provided that feedback at the listening post as well, correct?
Well, you know, I was a teacher at White Mountain Community College, and we do these Zoom meetings as well. I think the problem with Zoom is that you get flooded with commentary, and you are constantly it's scrolling down the whole time. So I honestly feel like everybody made a solid effort, but I don't think all the questions were answered. And I often think lots of times that people have stuff to say. I know Kate said she got inundated with stuff afterwards because I think people are trying to speak or they don't feel comfortable speaking. So I do think that the board as a whole is going to be hearing more about this from parents.
And Brian, I guess that's kind of like where I'm trying to clarify what the school board's role is in this, because you know, as it stands right now, as this meeting is ending, you coming to the board with this is going to be almost meaningless. That's not where you would want to address these concerns at this point. You would want to basically do that through the reentry committee, and that's why Jess had asked the question. Has the Jackson School Board already determined to follow along with the SAU 9 recommended plan to be voted on August 6th? Is Bartlett? If not, can you please describe how you are addressing reentry? What are the plans and when will they be shared with our community?
Sure.
What the board is doing now is that what we've said tonight is that we're going to go along for the time being with what the SAU 9 board is going to recommend on August 6th, because we're not doing anything outside of that.
Well, I understand that, but it's a little bit disappointing as you as a representative of our community are not advocating for us.
Well, as it stands right now, we're not, and that's what I'm saying. Is that what the board's comfortable with? Personally, I am. I like what's in the reentry plan. And I'm not going to have any mechanism to change that at this point until the August 6th meeting of the SAU 9. At which point I can bring concerns like that you have to that. But you know, the listening posts really are the places right now where it's giving you the opportunity to address that. You know, Jackson School Board isn't having a listening post on it. You know, we don't have a plan outside of what the reentry plan is. I'm personally comfortable with that, but you know, I don't know whether Kate and Micah are. Jen seems to be comfortable with it, but so we're kind of, what I'm saying is that because of our actions tonight, or lack of actions, this is what we're leaving the community at this point. And I was just trying to clarify that in the meeting, that that's what in fact we're doing, because we are not coming up with as a board with our own reentry plan that's outside of what the reentry plan is. And to be honest, Brian, I'm not quite sure how we would. And because the reason why I like the reentry plan as it is because I think that as far as the avenues are concerned and who needs to make these decisions, because you know, a lot of these need to be made by law and by statute by the superintendent. And then the school board has its role in those things. We're required to have a place of schooling. But then, you know, our middle school kids are affected differently and our high school kids are affected differently. And that's something that we need to be aware of. Like I said, I'm comfortable with where we're at, but if the community isn't, then I guess the best thing you can do is to contact the board. I guess, Jen, they'd have to be contacting you. They could contact me and we can make a plan from there. We start hearing a lot, but as it is right now, you know, Kate says she's heard a lot, but I have not. So I guess that's where I see is where we're at.
Thank you.
Jen, do you see it any other way, really? I mean, am I missing something here?
No, I mean, I definitely want to hear from, you know, from parents, but I want to make sure the process is followed. And I know being on other subcommittees and being involved with community on other projects besides this one, I know that the school does listen to people, and I know that they do take into account people's, you know, their constituents or their sending students, parents, they do take into that account. So if you didn't get to voice your concerns at the listening post, you know, write a letter, and you can send it to us, and I'll make sure it gets to the subcommittee myself. But they do need to hear it from the parents. That's why they have the listening post. And if you didn't get a chance to talk now, there's many other listening posts set up over the next few days. And I encourage people to discuss and or write a letter if that's what you feel. But I do know that the committee as a whole will be listening to everybody in the community, as well as taking into consideration the doctors and the New Hampshire boards, you know, the governor's recommendations and everything else. They are listening, and they do listen. And I've been on, you know, 12 years now, and many subcommittees, and we do listen to people. So I do appreciate you coming out and saying something. And I, again, would like you to submit that information, as well as, I'll take it back, but as well as to the Listening Post Committee and the Reentry Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I just put that out to everyone who's in the audience or even looking at the meeting. I have also had parents that we are going to come back, aren't we? My kids really need social interaction. They need to be. So there are a whole range of opinions and feelings about what's the right thing to do. So I would encourage anyone who has an opinion or some thoughts or some ideas about ways that we could mitigate that, so that we can, I mean, our desire is to meet everyone's needs and get all of the children socially and educationally taken care of in our community. It's important. So I just would like to hear from everyone who has an opinion.
I don't want to miss Allison Brand's question in the comments. She asks, how has the committee considered a remote learning cohort, not necessarily JGS, JBES, and KHS, but SAU wide?
We did yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes. We haven't quite figured out how to do that yet, but it has been a conversation. So if we're in a face-to-face and somebody has to quarantine for 2 weeks because there's a possible exposure, you know, how would we provide that education? So that it gets a little bit more complicated. There's a couple of different models that we've looked at. We haven't figured out the one I think that's best for us yet, but that we're aware that we try to think SAU 9 wide, which does get super complicated with all the tuition agreements. But we are trying to think in that way.
And the fact that young children wouldn't know the person on the other end of the computer in that case either.
That's the reason why it's not just an easy, let's just find a kindergarten remote teacher and we'll have a remote section of kindergarten, because it's not, you know, we'll have to look at a couple of different options for that in order to kind of balance both ends of that need.
We really appreciate the questions, and yes, we do keep track of everything in the chat box because we're recording, so we have all of it, and we will bring these back to the reentry committee. Thank you.
It looks like Jess has a question.
Just a quick note. One, to clarify, it's my understanding that the major decisions are being made in the next couple of weeks. So now is the time for feedback, and this is the time, if you need advocacy or whatever it is, to do that, because I do think that after August 6th, there will be less of a chance of having your input heard, because decisions have to get made, practically speaking. And we all know that both the committee and the superintendent will not please everyone. But if you need to share something, I just want to reiterate that these next couple of weeks are vital. And I did want to just ask if you guys could just clarify, you know, if someone has a question about special education or an IEP, or if someone has a concern about Jackson or Bartlett or Kennett, we don't want you all to get the same question, you know, and they can bring it up at a listening post, or they can bring it up. Do you want to direct people? I mean, do you copy the entire board? Do you copy Gail? Do you go to the superintendent? Do you copy Pam if it's special education? You know, I will say I'm on that committee, and it is tireless, and it is thankless, and it is hours and hours. So now is a good time to just help people streamline so that their voices can be heard.
Any way that someone feels comfortable communicating is fine. I'm taking calls from parents all the time. I know Katie and Kevin are. One of the reasons we set up 14 listening sessions was so that 16 listening sessions was so that the community could join us. If you join in one and feel like you think of another question later on, either send it to a school board, send it to Jen and have it sent to us through the school board, or put it in a chat at another listening session. We really want to hear, and I think that's evident in the number of sessions we have set up in the differing times. So please join us.
Any other questions or feedback at this point?
I don't see any. Yep, no hands being raised.
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
me.
wait, we have one hand.
Oh, do I hear Linda? I think that's Linda.
Yep. Can you tell us your name just for the minutes, please?
Linda Tierney.
I'm sorry.
Linda Tierney.
Did you
Can you
hear
hear
that?
me?
Linda Tierney.
Linda Tierney.
Yeah. Sorry, can you guys hear me okay?
That's
Yeah,
better.
now, yes.
Better.
Okay, great. Sorry. Yeah, so I do much better at writing than I do speaking publicly. I did write Kate a letter at length with lots of questions and concerns that I did ask her to share with you guys, and I thank Kate for that. I don't know if that's something that you have to go over right now, or if that's something that she can share with you later. One thing that I didn't add into the letter that I do have a question about right now is how involved is the staff and the teachers in this conversation? Do we have teachers maybe that aren't comfortable? Basically what I'm getting at is, say, like Kate said, we have 30% of families for various reasons that might not feel comfortable or not ready yet to go back to face-to-face learning. Do we possibly have teachers that are in that same boat, teachers with underlying conditions? Would there actually be a plan that could be made if there's a smaller amount of children that would be going to school face-to-face and an amount of teachers that don't feel comfortable? Could we split it up in that way? Or do teachers just have to go back regardless the amount of students that do end up attending this fall?
Jen, would you like me to answer?
Yes.
Okay.
You're on the
We do have teachers and staff involved at all levels of the committee and the steering committee, subcommittees and steering committee. They are being considered. Our focus is the health and well-being and safety of our students and all of our employees, as well as the community. There are many different levels to what you're proposing. I think we addressed it a little bit earlier on about the complexity of identifying teachers who are available and to be remote for all of our students, whether they're out in quarantine or ill or whatever the case may be. So that your questions will definitely be considered. I'm hoping Kate will be able to forward that to us. We'll consider all of your questions, and we are continuing to work on what that remote structure could look like.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I recorded your comments there too.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Anything else? Anybody else?
I don't see anybody else with a hand up.
Great.
No.
Thank you, Pam. Thanks
Okay.
for
Being your eyes.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. All right. With that being said, the meeting adjourned at 6:54.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Pam. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
Ken.
good night, everyone.
Thank you all so much. Really good job.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. All right. Bye-bye.
So Katie, I can end, just not turn it off.
Right.
Motion to
You're gonna
adjourn.
end the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh,
You already had, Jen declared
We
it.
did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Okay.
Didn't miss that part. Thank you all
Yeah,
so much
Pam.
for all of your efforts and hard work. Good night.
Thank you. Good
We'll get
night.
it.
Yeah, thanks,
Good night.
guys. Okay.
Pam, what you're gonna do is, after I finish talking to you this last, well, first thing you're gonna stop recording now. Just hit stop.